Good evening, Rabbi. Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you to our sponsors, our participants, and all of you that are joining us here tonight. And of course, matzav.com. We are live. We are streaming around the world on matzav.com. And thank you for Shari Artsagi for helping make that happen. A little over 40 years ago, tragically, a man named Meir tragically passed away during his sleep. And he was a young father, beloved by his friends and by his community. And he had a friend that wanted to do something for him in his memory. His friend was also named Meir. And by the shloshim, by the mark, 30 days later, he produced, translated, published Megillas Esther. This man, this friend, his name was Meir Zlotowitz, and what he published was the first of Art Scroll publications. And looking back, we could all think to ourselves, look where it's gone, and look what it's become. But 41 years later, when Rabbi Zlotowitz, Meir Yaakov ben was passed, when he passed, he also had friends that he didn't know personally, but people that considered themselves his students because of the various books that he allowed and helped become available. And when he passed, 40 participants of our community here in Columbus decided to do something by his shloshim, by the 30-day mark after he passed. And 40 participants, along with the community, came together into this room just about a year ago to celebrate our completion of Shisha Sidrei Mishnah. But it didn't stop there, because those 40 participants over the next year grew to 120 plus participants to this year's Siyum HaTorah. And looking back over the year, we could all think to ourselves, look where it's gone, and look where it's become. Look what it's become. And we gather here tonight to celebrate this Siyum, this completion, for those who did Mishnah, for those who did Tanakh, for those who did Chamishe Torah. We're all here as a community celebrating what we have coined Columbus United Siyum HaTorah. And it's therefore appropriate that we have our Rosh Kollel, Rabbi Henoch Morris, recite the Hadron for the very last Mishnah as we make our Siyum celebration. Rabbi Morris.
The last Mishnah in Shah states, Amir Yeshua ben Levi, and Yeshua ben Levi said, Asira Kadosh Baruch Hu Hankel Kol Tzadik V'Tzadik Shlosh Me'os V'Asar Olamos. That in the future, the Holy One, blessed is He, will apportion to each and every tzaddik, that means in the next world, 310 worlds. Shnei Amar, as it says, Hankel El Havai Yesh V'Os Roseim Amalei. That I have what to apportion to my lovers, and I will fill their treasures. Yesh, this is one of the examples of gematria. Yesh, in its gematria, the numerical form, is 310, hence 310 worlds. Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Chalafta, the Shas concludes with the following thought. Lo matza kadosh baruch hu kli machzik b'rachel liyisrael ela hashalom. The Holy One, blessed is He, did not find any vessel that holds blessing for the Jewish people, only shalom. This is also represented by this Siyum, where so many of you in this room and so many out of this room have come together to finish Shas mishnayos. I've done very, very few mishnayos, but I will be saying the Hadron on behalf of everybody who participated. And Torah is creates shalom, and shalom is what unites the Jewish people. Shnei Amar, as it says, Hashem oz la'amo yitain. Hashem will give power to his nation. Hashem yivarech es amo v'shalom. Hashem will bless his nation with peace. On behalf of our community, I say, Hadron Allah Shita Shidrei Mishnah, Hadron Allah, Daitan Allah Shisha Sidrei Mishnah, Daitan Allah, when the Stashminat Shisha Sidrei Mishnah, when the Stashminan, Lova Alma Adem, Lova Alma De'asi. Hadron Allah Shisha Sidrei Mishnah, Hadron Allah, Hadron Allah, Daitan Allah Shita Sidrei Mishnah, Daitan Allah, when the Stashminat Shita Sidrei Mishnah, Sisna Sheminan, Lova Alma Adem, Lova Alma De'asi. Hadron Allah Shita Sidrei Mishnah, Hadron Allah, Datan Allah Shita Sidrei Mishnah, V'daitach Allah Lo Nisnashe Minan, Minach Shita Sidrei Mishnah, Lo Sisnashe Minan, Lo V'amad Hadem V'amad Da'asi. Harev Na Adonai Eloheinu Es Tevei Torah Skodafim Fios Achta Beis Yisrael. Korana Nach Mitzatzeinu Tzatzeinu Achta Beis Yisrael. One year, Shemach Mumdei Torah Sech L'Shma. May Yavai Tzechak Kameinu Mitzvosach Ki Le'olam Hilei. He Libi Soim B'Chukech Aman Le'Nosh L'Olam L'Oshkach B'Kedech L'Kivam Ki Yisani Baruch Ato Adonai L'Amdei B'Chukech Amen 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 Solo V'Ed. Modani L'Fenech Adonai Eloheinu V'Lehei L'Sem Shestamta Chalki B'Yoshrei Beis HaMedrash V'Lo B'Yoshrei Korana. Sh'ani Mashkim V'Hei Mashkim. Ani Mashkim L'Divrei Torah V'Hei Mashkim L'Dvarim B'Teilim. Ani Amel V'Hem Amel. Ani Amel L'Mekabel Schar V'Hem Amel V'Ein Mekabel Schar. Ani Ratz V'Hem Ratzim. And Ratz Chayil V'Ba. And Ratz V'Shachas. Sh'nemar V'Talim T'V'Dem V'Shachas. And Sh'Demem Nimri Lech Yitzmehem. Lo Yechetzu Yimeim V'Aniyam Tachbach. Yiratzam L'Fenech Adonai Elohim V'Lehei L'Sem Kishem Sh'Azartanu L'Sayim. Shisa Shidrei Mishnah. Kachta Azreinu. V'Haskil Sram Achim. L'Sayim Limud Lamed Mitoch Harchava. Lishmer Lasses L'Kayim S'chad V'Ei Samet Teresef V'Yabba V'Skus Kol Tanayim V'Amarayim V'Samidi Chachamim and he's come the Shisa Shidrei Mishnah Kol Esrayim Shalomadnu Yamod Lanu L'Zareinu L'Zer Zareinu Shlo Tamash Atar Kadosh Ripinu Pizareinu Pizer Zareinu Miyatavad Olam B'Kum Ban Mikra Shakazu B'Yisalecha Tetrosach B'Shach B'Tishmar Lacha B'Akisosa Yisichecha Kivir B'Yamecha Yisifu Kleshtas Tayim Archimim B'Yiminu V'Yismala Osher Kavad and I Azama Yitain and I Versimah Shalom. Please rise for the charge. Rabbi said, Alevi Yisalosh Red Kushab, La'ela min Kol B'Chasav Shirasatish, Pasav Nechem Masad Amiram Be'amavim Ruamen. Alvis Ve'elver Rabbanan Ve'atamidei Hamel Kol Tamidei Samidei Hamel Kol Mandiaskin Be'Araisa Dibi Asra Hadein B'Dibi Kol Asar V'Asar. Lohan L'Chan Shlomo Rabbatin V'Chista V'Rafim In V'Chayin Amerikim Zanei Rivi Chay V'Kanami Kadam Avadi B'Shmaya V'Im Ruamen. Shlomo Rabbatin Shmaya V'Chayim Oain Yisrael V'Im Ruamen. Amen. Oseh Shalom V'Im Ruamen V'Ya'aseh Shalom Thank you, Rabbi Kappenstein, for coordinating, conceiving of, and putting this event together. Thank you all for joining.
So, Rabbi Jacobson, or better known as YY, does really not need my introduction. If you follow him online, see what he puts out, his different clips on WhatsApp or YouTube or wherever you may find his jokes or stories. They speak for themselves. So without further ado, don't sit down. Rabbi Jacobson.
Before I speak, I put my cell phone on vibrate, and I invite everybody to emulate me. You know, they tell a story about a woman phoned up the rabbi one day. He says, Rabbi, I have terrible news. My husband won the lottery, $325 million. The rabbi says, that's bad news. Halavai for all of the Jewish people. She says, no. You know my husband, he has a frail heart. He loses it on a good day. When he's going to hear the news about this lottery, he will not be able to take it. I'm afraid he'll faint, he'll collapse, who knows if he'll survive. The rabbi says, you know what, send him to my office. I will prepare him for the news. So the fellow shows up at the rabbi's office. Rabbi, what gives me the honor? He said, I just wanted to know, my dear friend, how you doing? How's life? You making ends meet? He says, Rabbi, they say in Yiddish, in the air, it's horrible. I'm stressed out, I'm overwhelmed. I just can't get it together. I can't cover the week. The rabbi says, you ever buy a lottery ticket? He says, yeah, every week I've been buying for 35 years, but people like me don't win. People in Montana win, San Francisco, Kentucky, Wyoming, never people like me. I'm made to be a shlamazel. The rabbi says, somebody got to win, maybe it's you. Please, let's not go there, this is hallucination. Rabbi, just like a fellow in Kentucky can win, or in Bozeman can win, you can also win. Says, Rabbi, you know what? If I win the lottery, you get half. And the rabbi collapsed and fainted. So you see, you always have to know also how to deal with good news, not only with bad news. It reminds me, there was once a fellow who came over from Lithuania, from the city of Pinsk. He came to the United States, and he came from a very poor family, and he decided in America he wants to start a new life for himself. So what? He borrowed money, bought himself a beautiful attire, beautiful suit, beautiful tie, beautiful hat, nice stunning shoes. Comes to the synagogue on Shabbos, sits in the front row. He doesn't want to be a schlepper anymore. He wants to be a prominent, seasoned member of the community. He's sitting in front, all dressed up. He wants to finally feel as a man of dignity and prominence and distinction. But then he thinks to himself, who's going to notice me in the synagogue? The tie won't do the trick. Then he realizes, the Rabbi always asks, is you're a Kohen, Kohen, Kohen. I'll say I'm a Kohen. The moment you're a Kohen, you right away get an aliyah, they call you up to the Torah, you bless the congregation. There's a certain honor conferred to a priest, to a Kohen, automatically, de facto. And sure enough, before the reading of the Torah, the Rabbi gets up, he says, Kohen? He says, yes, I'm a Kohen. Gets called up to the Torah, shkoyach. Feels like $1 million. Comes down, finally, he's beginning to make it in America. At the end of the prayers, people go by the rabbi and they say, Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbos, take your hand. And he comes by the rabbi. The rabbi looks at him. Yankel? Yankel from Pinsk? He says, yeah, that's me. He says, wow, you made it over to the United States. This is incredible. But Yankel, I have a question. I remember you as a child. I remember your father. I knew your grandfather. I remember your great-grandfather, Olav Shalom. Good Jews, fine Jews, but not Kohen. How in the world did you become a Kohen? Man looks at him and says, Rabbi, this is America. You could be a rabbi, I could be a Kohen. Why do I share this with you, friends? I share this with you because as I come to this stupendous event of a gathering of good news, to conclude the entire body of what's known as Mishnah, the nucleus of the Jewish oral tradition, Torah Shebaal Peh, my mind takes me back to a Talmudic story that takes place 1900 years ago. It's in Talmud, those who want to do the homework, if you don't trust me, Talmud Tractate Avodah Zarah, page 18a. The Talmud tells the following story. There was a great Talmudic sage who lived in the Holy Land. His name was Rabbi Hanina, the son of Tragian. And he would teach Torah. But unlike Columbus 2018, teaching Torah under Roman rule 1900 years ago was punishable by death, because the emperor outlawed the study of Torah after the destruction of the Second Temple in the year 70 after the Common Era. And one sage defied the rule, Rabbi Hanina, and he would go and teach Torah publicly. And the Romans caught him. And what did they do? The Talmud tells the story. They wrapped up this man in a Torah scroll. They took out a Torah scroll, parchment, and they wrapped him up in the Torah scroll, and they ignited them both on fire. But it wasn't enough. They soaked large pieces of wool in water and put it on his chest, on his heart, so it should be a slow, agonizing death. And his students were forced to watch, which was common in sadist, barbaric Rome. And in the middle of this torture, they turned to him and they asked him a question. 3 words in Hebrew. Ma taroya. What do you see? And he responded in 4 words. Gvilin nisrafim v'leisis parkas. I see parchment being burnt and letters soaring. He ultimately died. I want to ask you this evening, what type of question is it? They're watching their Rabbi, their teacher, their mentor, their master be burnt with a Torah. They say, what do you see? Ma Torah. What do they want to know? What the view looks like? What is he supposed to see? What's this question? What do you see? What were they thinking? What did they want from him? And his answer, I see parchment being burnt and letters soaring. What is that supposed to mean? Please hold this in your mind for a moment. I want to forward the tape recorder of Jewish history to 1959, McGill University in Montreal. A public debate between 2 scholars. Professor from Oxford University by the name of Arnold Toynbee, a British historian. On the other side, Professor Dr. Jacob Herzog, the ambassador of Israel to Canada, son of the chief rabbi of Israel, Yitzchak Isaac Halevi Herzog, brother of Israel's president Chaim Herzog, student of the famous Lithuanian sage Rabbi Zalman Meltzer. His nephew Buzi Herzog, just appointed last week as the head of the agency. And Jacob Herzog is debating Arnold Toynbee. The Toynbees weren't very fond of Israel. They're still not fond of Israel if you follow Oxford University propaganda or intelligentsia. And Toynbee argued publicly that Jews are not a nation. They're a religion. Judaism is a religion. It's not a nationality, and a religion doesn't have a homeland. You have Australian Jews, you have Canadian Jews, you have American Jews, you have French Jews, you have Russian Jews, you have Italian Jews. Wherever they go, they're still Jewish because Judaism is an idea. So Herzog asks, what is a nation? The Italians are a nation. The Greeks are a nation, not the Jews. Rabbi Dr. Jacob Herzog turns to Professor Toynbee and says, indulge my hypothesis for a moment. 3 Olympic airplanes come down from heaven. The first one lands in Athens. An old man comes out. You can see he's used his brains in the past. Somebody in the airport comes to greet him and says, welcome to Athens. What is your name? The man says, my name is Socrates. He says, Socrates? I never heard such a name. Shame on you. Tell me, how is the Greek Empire doing? He says, Socrates, I don't know where you've been, but the Greek Empire is gone with the wind for 2,400 years. There's no Greek Empire. He says, what are we? He says, we're barely a country called Greece, barely surviving economically. What's Greece? A member of NATO. Socrates says, what's NATO? Explains to him what NATO is. How is Greek philosophy doing? Is every child studying Socrates, Plato, Aristotle? He says, nah, Greek philosophy is obsolete. What do you talk about in salons and cafes? You talk about iPhone 7, iPhone 8, iPhone 11, Facebook, Instagram. Nobody studies Greek philosophy? Not really. They're into new stuff. Take me to the Acropolis. It says, for $9, I'll show you the remnants. Take me to Mount Olympus. There's nothing to see. Take me to Zeus. It says, they don't worship Zeus anymore. It says, what do they worship? The Greek Orthodox Church. Socrates says, what's the Greek Orthodox Church? He says, where have you been? A branch of Christianity. He says, what's Christianity? He says, you don't know? He says, no, it's not been there in my days. He says, well, I'll tell you this story briefly. Every Jewish boy who grows up in a Jewish home with a Jewish mother is taught by his mother the following message. Not only is he God's gift to humanity, but he is actually God himself. That's what every Jewish mother teaches her Jewish son. However, most Jewish boys are fortunate at some point to marry a Jewish wife. And within a few months, usually within a few weeks, and if you're lucky, within a few hours, she makes it very clear to him, not only is he not God, not only is he not God's gift to humanity, but the question is if he is entitled to an opinion. Most Jewish men are in therapy for the rest of their life, negotiating between the two paradoxical approaches, his mother's approach and his wife's approach. Mom who believes that he's God, and his wife who's not sure he's entitled to profess a view. That's most Jewish boys. But Yeshua never got married. And 2.5 billion people believe his mother. Socrates looks at him and says, why don't you speak ancient Greek? He says, a few scholars speak ancient Greek. We speak modern Greek. Socrates looks at him and says, this is not my Athens. I'm out of here. Bye. Another airplane lands in Rome. Out comes a statesman. Some wounds on his chest. You could see a warrior on his face. The man in the airport says, welcome to Rome. What is your name? And he says, my name is Julius Caesar. He says, from the Caesar salad. He said, in the good days, you would have been beheaded for that. Now tell me, how is my Roman Empire doing? He says, Roman Empire? 1700 years, tribute to Constantine, there's no Roman Empire. He says, you mean when people hear the word Rome, their hearts don't fill with dread? He says, not really. So what are we? We're a city in Italy. What's Italy? Member of NATO. Take me to the Colosseum. He says, for $9, I'll show you the remnants. Take me to the gladiators. For $8.50, I'll show you the excavations. Take me to the steps of the Senate where I uttered those fateful words, et tu brute, then Caesar falls. He says, there's no Senate, there's no steps of the Senate. Take me to Jupiter. He says, nobody worships at Jupiter. What do you go to worship? We have the Vatican. What's the Vatican? Caesar says, Catholicism. What's Catholicism? The Pope. Caesar said, never heard of the Pope. Who's that? So I'll give you a brief history. Every Jewish boy grows up. The mother tells him he's God. He gets married. Yashka never got married. The rest is history. The Pope doesn't get married. Caesar says, why don't you speak Latin? He says, a few professors speak Latin. We speak Italian. He says, what are you guys known for? He says, pizza and pasta. Julius Caesar looks at him and says, this is not my Rome. Bye-bye. Leaves. A third airplane lands, Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv. An old man comes out of the plane. Somebody in the airport comes up and says 2 words, Shalom Aleichem. And the man says, Aleichem Shalom. Ma Shemcha, what is your name? And the old man says, Shmi, my name is Moshe. My name is Moses. Hey, Gamani Moshe! I'm from Tbilisi, Georgia. I made Aliyah 7 months ago. The Israelis already ripped me off. And by the way, I need a loan. And I also have a new company I'm opening up. Maybe you want to become an investor. And even if the company does go sour, I still need a loan. Moshe, where are you from? He says, I'm from Egypt, from the Nile Delta. He says, what brings you here? I came home. Have you ever been here? Moshe says, no. He says, why do you call it home? He says, 40 years I tried getting into this place. Trust me, I gave my sweat and blood and tears for this place. I have the right to call it home. And Moshe from Georgia, Tbilisi, says, my dear friend Moshe, welcome home. And the old man Moshe says, I have an awkward question. You know, in heaven they starve you. Not a lot of good food there. Any food in Israel? Is you joking? That's what Jews are good at. The theme of every holiday that they taught us. They tried to kill us. We won. Let's go eat. Moshe says, yeah, but we have this diet. It's called kosher. You have that? He says, oh, now I don't like you. You think you're the only one who knows about kosher. Of course we have kosher. In this airport itself, we have 90 restaurants. They don't want you to go 10 feet without food, and most of them are kosher, and every type of kosher. Kosher and kosher style, and semi-kosher and glatt kosher, mahadin, banut, badatz, eidachredes, rabbanan, every type of kosher. Chinese kosher, Japanese kosher, Thai kosher, Vietnamese kosher, Columbus kosher, every type of kosher. Moses says, wow, one more thing. I was in a rush. Socrates and Caesar were rushing to go visit their countries. I forgot in heaven my talit and my tefillin, my prayer shawl and my phylacteries. You have any in Israel? He says, oh, now I really don't like you. What I mean if we have? Rolls up his sleeve and he says, look, you can still see the remnants of the straps. Of course we have. Come. He takes them down. Brings him into a shul with his talis and tefillin. Brings him into a beis medrash. A father is sitting with a son. And as they walk in, the man kisses the mezuzah. Moshe says, what are you doing? He says, shame on you. You don't know what this is. He says, what is it? It's a mezuzah. 3,000 years ago, there was another man named Moshe. And he told us to write chapters of the Bible and put it on our doorposts. They walk into the room and a father opens a textbook, a chumash, with his son. And they read together the following verse from the Torah. Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe lemar. And God spoke to Moses, saying, and 2 large pearls, which you may call tears, streamed down the face of Moses. As he observed this in the Promised Land, Professor Herzog turns to Professor Toynbee. And he says, my dear Professor Toynbee, if Socrates and Julius Caesar came today to Athens or Rome, what would they find? Not the same culture, not the same God, not the same philosophy, not the same values, not the same faith, not the same heritage. The only thing they would find is the same geographic soil. The geography is the same, nothing else. If Moses would come today to Israel, what would he find? The same language, the same faith, the same God, the same values, the same mitzvahs, the same lifestyle, the same behaviors, the same heritage, the same mitzvahs, the same Shabbat, the same ram's horn, the shofar that gave Jews migraines. 3,000 years ago, still give them migraines, 222. The same stale matzah that they ate 3,300 years ago at the Exodus, they're still eating, and when you eat it, you could taste that it's 3,000 years old. Eat my matzah. The same lulav and the same willow. The same Torah, the same texts. The same holidays, the same God. Even the same arguments. They're still arguing about the same things 3.5 millennia later. Professor Toynbee, the Greeks and the Italians are a nation, and the Jewish people are not a nation. Tell me, Professor Toynbee, if the Jewish people don't constitute a nation, what does constitute a nation? And to his credit, Toynbee says, I have to think about it. He's still thinking. Wherever he is, he's been gone for quite a few years. But tonight, you have an answer to the question. The point we didn't understand. How did this happen? How did this happen? Where is Caesar? Where is Socrates? Next week, Jews the world over are going to commemorate the destruction of 2 temples in Jerusalem, one 2,600 years ago, one 1,900 years ago, one by Babylonian Nebuchadnezzar, one by Vespasian and Titus. Where is Vespasian? Where is Titus? Where is Caligula, Pompey, Adrian, Tiberius? Where is Pharaoh? Where's Khmelnytsky? Where's Torquemada? Where's Stalin? Rosenberg, Eichmann, Himmler, Goring, Goebbels? Where are they? The answer is in Wikipedia. We are the Jewish people. We created Wikipedia. We edit them. You can open up now the file on Vespasian, the one who 2,000 years ago smashed the temple, destroyed Jerusalem, and you can edit him. But it's not only that we edit them, we also want to make them edible. We took Haman and we turned him into a hominid. We took Antiochus, we turned him into a latke. Hanukkah time, I was lecturing near Brooklyn College in New York, and the president of Brooklyn College, a fine Irish lady, asked me, Rabbi, why do you guys eat so many donuts and latkes on Hanukkah? I said, very simple. Hanukkah celebrates our victory against the Greeks. The Greeks were into 4 things: looks, fashion, sports, and exercise. We make sure to eat scores of latkes and donuts so that we never ever end up looking like that. We took Pharaoh, we turned him into a matzo ball. It's not enough that we defeat our enemies. That's no big deal. We want to eat them. We want to gain calories from them. But how did this happen? How did this miracle happen? Don't take it for granted. What would be the scientific answer to this question? How did it happen? And I think the objective scientist will tell you, whenever you want to, in science or physics, scrutinize what allows something to survive in various divergent circumstances, climates, and milieus. You have to look at the constants. You have to look at the features that are always there. You can't attribute survival over millennia to features that are temporary. You have to attribute it to those things that are constant. And in Jewish history, it's not that complicated. For the objective person, secular or religious, left-wing or right-wing, because we've been around for many, many years. And I ask you tonight, or today, one question. Is there a constant in Jewish history? Something that was there with us from the day we became a people, 3,500 years ago, till July 11th, 2018, in the Kollel of Columbus, Ohio. Is there a common thread that was always there? Gefilte fish? Unfortunately not. Sushi? I wish, but not. Chinese food? Not. Coca-Cola? Not. Bingo? Not. Bagels and lox? Not. The Yankees from Brooklyn, from New York? Not. Is it a land? We have a land. Sadly, most of our history we were in exile. Is it a language? Sadly, most of our history till today, so many Jews don't know our language. Is it a culture? Jewish culture varied from country to country, from group to group. The Yemenites don't know what gefilte fish is. The Sfardim don't often know Ashkenazic foods. Ashkenazim don't know what schug is, heaven forbid. Culture varies. Is it an army? Thank God we have a strong army today. Most of our history, sadly, we did not have it. So the question is, what's the constant that Jews always had? Not a land, not a language, not a culture, not an army. What is it? There's one thing you can point to. And that is, from the day we stood at the feet of Sinai until this very day, there was one thing that accompanied the Jewish people through thick and thin, in the greatest times and in the most difficult times, and that is the Torah. The Torah and the mitzvot. The study, the immersion in the study of Torah and the celebration of its mitzvot that accompanied Jewish men, women, and children in every century and every milieu, in every country and every region, in every time and in every space, until this very day. So when one asks, how did this miracle happen? The objective mind must look to that quality, to that reality that accompanied the Jewish people through thick and thin. You know, the other day, I heard this from a rabbi in Israel. His name is Rabbi Yitzchak David Grossman, a rabbi in Migdal HaEmek in Israel. In comes to his office a fellow, a man named Dani Atom, who's a well-known figure in the Galil in northern Israel. He returned from a festival, a reception in Hanover, Germany, where he met a man in German parliament by the name of Ditlib Herzog, who comes over to him and says, a few weeks ago his father died. On his deathbed, he told his son, I have a confession to make. I was in Hitler's Wehrmacht. I committed some atrocities. Before I die, I want to confess. He takes out a wallet. He says, this comes from a synagogue. We once went into a synagogue. We burnt it down. And they had this parchment spread all over the floor. And that day I got my certificate from the Wehrmacht, and I wanted a nice wallet to hold on to it. And I felt the parchment, and it was so rich and nice, and I cut off a piece, and I fashioned it into my wallet. And today I feel bad. Go give it to the holiest Jew in Israel. He dies, and his son, who's in the parliament, in the Reichstag, gives it to Dani Atom, who comes to Rabbi Grossman and says, as far as I'm concerned, you're the holiest man in Israel. Here's the wallet. I kid you not. Rabbi Grossman opens the wallet. It's a Torah scroll. It comes from the Torah. And he opens it. But there are letters on it. And I saw the photos of it. It's in the book of Deuteronomy. The final conclusion of the portion of Kisavo in the opening of Parshas Nitzavim. And it says there, words of rebuke to the Jewish people. And Moses continues, you stand today before God, and Rashi writes, Rabbi Grossman says, that when the Jews heard the rebuke about what might happen in their future, the exile and the destruction and the suffering, they felt despondent. So Moses said, Atem nitzavim hayoim, you are like the sun. The sun may set, but it will rise up again. These were the verses that were written in the Torah. And I thought to myself, imagine 75 years ago, you were a fly on the wall in that synagogue. And you would have watched those despicable and brutal acts by the SS. What would have you thought? You would have naturally and rightfully thought, this is the end of Jewish existence. The Third Reich has triumphed. 75 years later, in our homeland, that wallet coming from that Torah comes back to the Jewish people, and it says, you may go through a lot. Your sun will set, but it will never be obliterated. It will rise again. What gave us that perseverance? that power of eternity, that consistency, that diligence. It was that same scroll that the Jewish people held on to through thick and thin. And indeed, when you speak about Torah, it is the single most powerful factor for Jewish eternity. But there's more. What else did Torah do for the Jewish people? Still does for the Jewish people? And the answer is perspective, perspective, perspective. We live in a free world, a freedom that our grandparents didn't conceive of, but we live in a morally confused world. What the Torah did for the Jewish people for 3,000 years is it anchored us, teaching us what is important, what is not so important. What should be your priorities? What does it mean to be a good person? What does it mean to be an ethical person? Another question. When are you a child and when do you grow up? Nobody knows. Your mother thinks you still didn't grow up. When are you a child? When do you grow up? When is it time to dissolve a marriage? What is ethical? What is unethical? What are my responsibilities in the world? Why am I here? Who am I? What happens when I die? What is morality? What is ethics? What is the meaning of life? What should be my priorities in life? What are the most important things? What does it mean to be a good husband? A good wife? A good father? A good mother? The other day, a woman turns to her husband and says, you know, we're married 18 years. You never shared with me your emotions. Which was a hard thing for men. How do you feel about me? Tell me how you feel about me. And the husband looks at her and says, how I feel about you? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, J. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. She's like, wow, what does that mean? He says, it's how I feel about you. What do you mean? He says, A, you're amazing. You're awesome. You're astronomical. You're something. B, beautiful. C, charming, colorful, creative, caring. D, delicious, delightful. Wow. E, you're extraordinary. Mama, your heart is melting away in love. F, fantastic, fabulous. G, gorgeous, great. Wow. H, honorable and hilarious. She never heard such things. She's like, and what's I, J, K? He says, I'm just kidding. Now, this fellow has been missing since last Wednesday. So if you see some spaghetti here in the streets of Columbus, you got to report him. What do you do in a good marriage? These questions are not easily answered by the marketplace, by the global economy. This is what Torah did for the Jewish people. How do you educate a child in today's world? What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be Jewish? The other day, there was a kid having a bar mitzvah. So he comes to his mother, he says, I want to give a bar mitzvah speech, and I want to talk about where we come from. So she says, where we come from? Oh, unbelievable family. And she tells him, no, the beginning, where we come from. She says, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. Then he created Adam and Eve. For some reason, they decided to have children. The rest is history, or actually her story. And that's where we come from. Goes to his father. His father is an enlightened graduate of Duke. Daddy, where do we come from? Daddy explains to him, Big Bang, primordial soup, or primordial cholent. Over 15.3 billion years of evolution, we have evolved. We have evolved from the apes, evolved from the monkeys, evolved from other primates. Daddy, how did it begin? It began with gas and bacteria. Comes back to mother and says, Mommy, I'm very confused about my bar mitzvah speech. I want to talk about where we come from. You tell me we come from Adam and Eve and God, Abraham and Sarah. Daddy tells me we come from monkeys, apes, gases, and bacteria. What's the truth? And Mom says, my son, there's no contradiction. Your dad was talking about his side of the family. I'm, of course, talking about my side of the family. Who is a person? How do you deal with stress, mental anxiety, mental illness? These are not easy questions. For 4,000 years, the Torah has served as the compass, the moral anchor, giving the Jewish people perspective. What is marriage? What is family? What is education? What is good? What is bad? What is right? What is wrong? Who we are? What is our mission? And in today's world, I don't think anybody can afford to live without that anchor. The antithesis to the word holy, kodesh, is what? Chol. What does chol mean? Anybody knows? Sand. Why is sand the antithesis to holiness? Because you can't plant in the sand. No roots. You plant a tree and it's gone with the wind. The sand is here today and there tomorrow. Holiness is about rootedness. You have roots. You know who you are, and you could bequeath it to somebody else. They say the definition of chutzpah is you come to a therapist. You have a split personality, and you want a group discount. The Torah gave the Jewish people roots. And what do our children, our students, our grandchildren need more than knowing who they are and who they are not? When Golda Meir became the Prime Minister of Israel, she penned a note to Henry Kissinger, the Secretary of State. I look forward to a good working relationship with you. After all, he's Jewish. And Henry Kissinger writes back to her, I have to state my priorities. Number one, I am an American. Number two, I am Secretary of State of the U.S. Number three, I'm Jewish. And she says, wow, that is why I look forward to such a close working relationship with you. Because here in Israel, we read from right to left. The question of identity is what Torah answered for the Jewish people, and does so till today. I have a friend, a rabbi in Florida. Painful story, he tells me. A father comes into his office, says, Rabbi, I need advice. What type of advice do you need? He left his wife because he found somebody that he thought would be more interesting. He has a 14-year-old son. The 14-year-old son is by the father. The 14-year-old son blames his new girlfriend for the destruction of the family. The father proposed to his new girlfriend, and she said, fine, but you have to get rid of this boy because he hates me. So the father calls in the boy. He's now 15. Says, I rented for you an apartment a few blocks away on the beach. Gives him $10,000 cash. Gives him a few credit cards that he's going to pay for. Says, you have whatever you need. I'll come to visit you whenever you want, but you can't step foot into my home. And the boy takes the money, takes the credit cards, takes the keys to the apartment, throws it in his father's face. Says, I don't need your money, I don't need your flat. All I wanted is a father. What gives people a misconstrued perspective about priorities? There are so many temptations in this world. It's so easy to go astray. It's so easy to lose focus. It's so easy to sacrifice that which you love most. And even the most brilliant of us have our very, very weak moments. But the Jew who learns Torah every day, the Jew who learns Torah every week, the Jew who learns Torah every month, still makes a lot of mistakes. But there's perspective. There's a Weltanschauung. There's an anchor. What does God think about life? What does God think think about marriage? What does God think about sexuality? What does God think about love? What does God think about money? What does God think about purpose, happiness, wholesomeness, fun, excitement, creativity, emotional health, therapy and psychology? Because there's no subject that Torah doesn't touch. But I think, friends, there's one more thing about Torah, and that answers that mystery. I mean, imagine you would hear one day that in Washington, all of the Supreme Court justices, including Trump's new nominee, take the Constitution of the United States and they start dancing around Capitol Hill. What would you feel? You would justifiably feel that there's something weird going on. Lawyers don't dance with their law books, and physicians don't dance with their medical texts. They're made to read, not to dance. One exception, the Jewish people. You walk into a shul on Simchas Torah. They take out the Torah scrolls, they start dancing. This is a book of law. Why are you dancing? Why is everybody dancing? It's a unique phenomenon. Doesn't exist anywhere in the world with any other book of law. It's a book of laws. No cheeseburgers. No treif. No eating on Yom Kippur. What are you dancing for? What's the dancing? Jews treated the Torah scroll. They dance in front of it like you dance in front of a bride. They kiss it like you kiss your best friend, like you kiss your baby. They stand in reverence of it like you stand in reverence of a king. Who kisses a book of law? Mwah, 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 mwah. It's parchment. You kiss a baby, you kiss a best friend, you kiss a... What are you kissing? A book of law. What did they see in it? But this tells you a little bit about the Jewish people. We saw in it the secret of eternity. We saw in it the secret of our history. We saw in it the anchor of life. And above all this, we saw in it the ability to connect every day to God himself through his words. When the Jew kissed the Torah, he's not only kissing text. He or she is kissing, so to speak, God. Law as love, and love as law. The Jew came home from work, and he opened up a Mishnah, opened up Chumash, opened up Talmud, opened up a book of Judaism, and he felt like he was in a personal romantic relationship, or she was in a personal romantic relationship with God. And then, as I was listening to the Rosh HaKollel, Reb Henner Shlita, concluding the whole Mishnah that you learned, the 6 sections of the Mishnah that many of you learned, Mazel Tov. At that moment, I went back to that story that I began with. You remember the story? 1900 years ago, Rabbi Hanina ben Trabi is in a Torah scroll on fire. And the students say, what do you see? Ma Toroya. May I suggest they weren't asking him to tell them the view out the window. They were asking a very different question. What do you see as the future of Jewish history? What do you see? When the greatest Talmudic sage can be wrapped up by the Roman sadists in the holy word of God and be burnt alive, what is our future if not doom, ruin, destruction, and demise? What do you see? On another note, Israel's defense minister, Moshe Dayan, you remember him? Yeah. Patch on the eye. Driving on an Israeli highway 165 kilometers per hour, which in Israel is not that fast. Policeman stops him and says, General Dayan, you're driving like a madman. I'm going to quadruple your summons. You have to be a role model. And Moshe Dayan looks at him and says, I have one eye. What would you like me to do with that eye? Look at the speedometer or look at the highway? I don't know if he got a ticket or not. Nor do I care. But the insight is important. We often look at the speedometer in life. We don't see the highway. We don't see our destination. That moment they asked their teacher, being burned, what do you see? Tell us what you see on the highway of Jewish history. What do you see? Is this worth sacrificing for? Or do we have to say goodbye? Just like so many other cultures and faiths and nations and tribes, at some point in Hegel's famous theory of history, at some point had to say goodbye. And Rabbi Hanina told them the most four powerful words of Jewish history. The parchment is being burnt, but the letters are soaring. The parchment is being burnt, but the letters are soaring. They're soaring upwards, and they're going to be transplanted in new places, in new regions, in new minds, in new shuls, in new kollel, in new yeshivas, in new communities, the world over. You can't burn ideas. You can't destroy the letters. You can't obliterate souls. You can try to destroy ideas, but ideas, truth is indestructible. The letters are soaring. Was he right? Hindsight is 2020. Come with me this evening to the Kollel here in Columbus. Was Rabbi Hanina ben Chadia right? Look around. Jews from all backgrounds, all persuasions, different types of homes, different walks of life, different levels of Jewish education, and I'm sure different point of views about a lot of things. 3 Jews, 29 opinions. But there's something that unites us. Those letters were transplanted. And in the 21st century, they were transplanted, of course, to Israel and so many other countries, but to the United States and to this particular city, where dozens of you, hundreds of you, learned the whole year Chumash, learned mishnayos, and tonight you celebrate that completion of mishnayos that quotes Rabbi Hanina, that sage who said, the letters will soar, and the letters soared and took root right here and continue to blossom in your hearts, in your homes, in your souls. That's what he told his students. My dear friends, a few years ago, I saw a story that caught my attention. Eichmann was killed by Israel in 1962. For 50 years, Israel never said who executed him because they were afraid of neo-Nazis taking revenge. Not long ago, they released his name. A Yemenite Jew by the name of Shalomke Nagar. He is the one who hung him, and he cremated him. They didn't want his ashes in Israel. They went 3 miles into the Mediterranean, international waters. They scattered Eichmann's ashes in the water. The Spiegel, you familiar with the Spiegel? A German magazine, and they have a TV network, came to interview, old today already, an elderly man. He learns in Kollel, all day in Israel. He's an old Yemenite Jew, like a real Yemenite Jew with the accent and the pronunciation and the complexion, and they're interviewing him. And they want to interview him in the German studio in Tel Aviv. And you know the Yekkes, they're neat and clean, and he says, no, you have to interview me in my kollel where I learn. They go into the kollel. Now, excluding this kollel, many kollels you go into are not the highest level of neatness and organization. If there's coffee, there's no milk. If there's milk, there's no cups. If there's cups, there's no sugar. If there's sugar, there's no spoons. There's books all over the place. Jews are arguing. You go to Kollel in Israel, somebody decides that this is his home, so he makes a bedroom. One person is sleeping, one person is making a kiddush, the other one is eating herring, the other one is making a minyan, the other people are arguing. It's not for the Germans. They don't like this. They're Yekkes, you know. You say, come on, we can't do this. They're here or nowhere. So they interview Shalom Kenagar there. I'm reading the interview. And they want to know about Eichmann's last days. And he tells them, Eichmann was behind 5 chambers because they were so afraid that somebody's going to kill him. And all the food that Eichmann ate, he said, I had to taste first. Because they were scared somebody put poison into the food. So he asked Issa Herald, the head of the Mossad, he said, I don't understand. If there's poison, then I'm going to die. So the head of the Mossad said, listen, for Eichmann, I don't have a replacement. For you. He describes the last moments, unrepentant, his final words, his salute to the Fuhrer. I'm not going to repeat that. The architect of the Holocaust. He hangs him, he cremates him. Shine. Fascinating interview. At the end, the German interviewer turns to Shalomka, the Yemenite Jew, says, I have one last question. Why did you refuse to be interviewed in our beautiful, clean, air-conditioned, tidy, organized studio in Tel Aviv? Why in this chaotic place? Books all over the place, people screaming and arguing. You ever went into a kollel yeshiva where they learn, everybody's arguing with each other. That's what the Jews have done and still do. Why here? And he looks at them and he says, I'll tell you why. I know that millions of Germans are going to watch this interview. And I wanted them to see that not only did the Jewish body survive, I wanted them to see that Jewish culture, the Jewish Torah, the Jewish teachings, the Jewish learning survive. I wanted them to see the books. You see how organized they are? I wanted them to see disorganized, torn arguments. I wanted them to see our faith, our heritage, our tradition, our Torah is alive. In Lublin, in the city of Lublin, they had the largest library in Europe. 50,000 volumes in a public place, a yeshiva in Eastern Europe. When the SS came in, they made the Jews build a fire and burn all the books. And then the SS said, dance. I want you to dance. Dance when your books are burning. The Jews had no choice. They started to dance. But one Jew did a smart thing. There was a Yiddish, I don't know how many of you know the Yiddish romantic songs from before the war. If you had a great grandmother who taught you these songs. But there's a lovely Yiddish romantic love song about a Jewish couple that are in a fight. It's not something new. And she is not looking at him. She's ignoring him. And he has a song. He says, "Oy, lam is a chibbe betten, lam is a chibbe betten." Basically, let's make up with each other. Stop holding grudges against me. Forgive me. I'm just a regular guy. Let's move on. As the books are burning, this Jew changes the lyrics. Riboynoi shel olam mirvelen ze iberleben. From the words, let's make up with each other, he changes the lyrics on the spot. Master of the world, we will outlive them. And suddenly the SS sees the oomph. The Jews are dancing and singing with so much passion, and he can't understand it. But they understood Yiddish. They heard the words. Master of the world, we're going to outlive them. The books were burnt, all 50,000. But the souls and the letters are here tonight. And when you start learning Mishnah again, and you'll open up the first Mishnah of Tractate Brachas, and you have there the quote of Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Eliezer, the sages, and suddenly you have a book, and you're taken back to the 1st century after the Common Era in the Holy Land, and then you read the commentary of Rashi, and you're taken to 11th century France, and then you read the commentary of Bartanura, and you're taken to 15th century Spain, and then you read the commentary of Tosfos Yom Tov, and you're taken to 17th century Poland, and you read a page of Talmud, and you're taken to 4th century, 5th century Iraq. You have a book, and you open it and you learn it, and 3,000 years of Jewish history converge into one, culminating right here in this holy space of learning and achievement. This is not just a conclusion of Mishnah. It's a great triumph of Jewish history. And it's a triumph that belongs to every single Jew, because the study of Torah belongs to every single Jew. man, woman, and child. And I would say that tonight's event, more important than anything else, is an invitation and a challenge to every one of us to create a connection between the people and the book. We're called the people of the book, but sometimes the connection needs to be created between the people and the book. The Torah doesn't belong to Orthodox Jews, to ultra-Orthodox Jews, to Hasidic Jews, to Yeshivic Jews, to this Jew. The Torah belongs to every single Jew. Torah tziva lanu Moshe, Moirasha, Kehilas Yaakov. It's the inheritance of every single Jew. I want to conclude by really thanking my dear friend Reb Hillel, who put in a lot of sweat together with his Jacobson. I don't want to say blood, but a lot of sweat. I also don't want to say tears, but a lot of sweat and a lot of joy and a lot of passion into creating the beautiful gathering of learning Torah and increasing in Torah for so many different types of people. It's inspiring. It's thrilling. I come from New York. There are Jews who learn Torah there. You come here to Kollel. Last night I was in Toronto, in a place called Guelph. You know Guelph? Don't worry, I also didn't know about Guelph. I Googled it before I spoke so I could pronounce it correctly. And Jews were learning Torah there. And I come today to Columbus, and Jews are celebrating the conclusion of the Mishnah here. Ashreinu matoim chelkeinu. How moving to be part of such a people. I thank you. God tonight celebrates and says, look at my children. I gave them a Torah at some lonely mountain 3,500 years ago. And they still kiss it, learn it, internalize it, and dance with it. I want to especially thank the individuals, many friends of mine, sponsored and contributed to the creation of this beautiful, beautiful evening. The Rosh HaKollel, Rabbi, all of the members of the Kollel and their families, for learning, spreading Torah, teaching Torah. All of you who are here this evening, and particularly our friends Ronnie Wilhelm, Shlomi Yehuda Rechnitz, Amir Jaffe, Reb Tuvia, and Leah Schattenstein, who are also behind the beautiful Chafetz Chaim Heritage Foundation video that they always show on the 9th day of Av, on Tisha B'Av, inspiring and moving. Their children, David and Ida Schattenstein, Ralph Herzka, Frank Storch, Ira, Shuni, Meir, and Michal Perlmutter. And all of you who have come together to sanctify the name of God, to sanctify the name of Torah, and to bring so much light and holiness into the world. Today I say with you, Baruch she'echiyonu v'kimonu v'giyonu lizman hazeh. The celebration of Torah is a celebration of eternity, a celebration of light, a celebration of life, and a celebration of the Jewish people. May you go from strength to strength in building Torah, internalizing Torah, and sharing the depth, majesty, and beauty of our heritage with yourselves and loved ones, and with the world over. Thank you very much.